Polyrhythms. Now, when someone first introduced me to the concept of polyrhythms, I was just blown. I didn't even think it was actually possible to have two contrasting rhythms come together and actually make some sort of musical sense to us. So I took it as a challenge to actually compose something using this concept of polyrhythms. And I have to say, I'm quite glad with the results. So the piece revolves around the 3 against 2 polyrhythm and the 4 against 3 polyrhythm, which is, I admit, slightly ironic because I named the piece Polyrhythmic Plethora and it just has 2 polyrhythms in it. It's very simple, but I'm proud of actually getting it done. So I required a melody for the piece and it's quite simple, so I decided to grab the keyboard and record a simple one. Here we go. So that was the initial idea of the piece, and that is, I didn't want this to be the main overarching melody of the piece because I thought it would be slightly boring to have the same melody repeating over and over again. So after adding a few layers of pads to just build up momentum in the piece, I came up with basically a second theme to the piece that moved towards the chorus, and this is what it sounded like. So let's go ahead to the chorus. Actually, before I go ahead to the chorus, there is this slight miscellaneous detail here. Before we go into the chorus, from that transition from the pre-chorus to the chorus, I added this reverse symbol, and that basically adds a little more excitement and momentum to the piece. And that sort of reverse symbol, it adds just a little bit of excitement before we go into the chorus. It's not much. As you can see, the piano is still the dominating instrument here. along with the piano I had a choir which is panned right. It's just the choir playing. It's just simple chords on the right. To complement the choir, I had the pad play similar chords and pan those to the left. Along with that, I added this simple drum, just alternating between the crash and the hi-hat. And we slowly trail off. Yeah, so we just have this sort of flourishing piano part, and it's playing runs across from its lower end to the upper end. I felt like even though this is the middle of the song, it required some sort of like trailing off, so you could start the motion again. We could start the momentum again. Now that we have concluded this first section of the song, we have to find a way to build that momentum back up again. And so the first most popular technique to rebuild momentum is actually the concept of droning notes. And this is when you have a repeated note in the bass line and that just drones over and over again. And that sort of builds momentum when you have just trailed off. So this is what I decided to do for that. I added this electric piano track. Now along with this, I needed a percussive element, so I added these shakers. Now these shakers, again, they are for building momentum. I know I talk about that a lot. We have to build momentum in a song so that you can keep people interested and engaged without them just trailing off. We have the same melody repeating again because this is following the sort of pop, song structure where you have a verse, a pre-chorus, a chorus, and then that basically repeats again, and in some cases you have a bridge. And so since this is the second repetition of the verse, it needs to have a similar melody as we had in the first time, but it has to have something more because this is an instrumental. We don't have any lyrics to change, so we have to add a few more textures to differentiate it from what it was in the beginning. Now I added this drum groove sort of in the middle of the song, and the thing with that is this drum groove is actually a 4 against 3 drum groove. You have the bass, you have the kick drum that is playing 4 quarter notes, and you have the snare and the cymbals, and they are playing basically in triplets. Now this sort of addition of a 4 against 3 polyrhythm, while you're having another polyrhythm, that's the 3 against 2 polyrhythm going on, it creates this sort of, I should say, surprise, because no one expects to have this 4 against 3 sort of weird wonky groove in the middle of a 3 against 2 polyrhythm, and this just lingers on for 2 bars and leaves again. And this was inspired by one of Jacob Collier's songs, Hajanga, and in the middle of Hajanga he had a 4 against 3 drum groove, and that sort of just came and went without letting us actually latch onto it. The drum groove is long enough for us to recognize that it's there, but not long enough for us to latch onto it and for us to recognize it as an integral part of the song. We have the pads coming on again at this point. Now we have the pre-chorus. This is, remember, the second theme of the song. We're playing it again. This time we have added shakers, and we have added a drone for an E piano, and we have added a pad. We've even added a drum groove a drum groove that just drops in the middle of the piece, just to give it that little bit of momentum and to distinguish it from what the first pre-chorus was. Now the next chorus is pretty similar in the sense that we had the drop of the drum groove and we again have the reverse symbol over here. Now I really love this reverse symbol. This reverse symbol, it still gives that sort of sucking in momentum into the piece. So we have at the end of the chorus, instead of gradually trailing off like what happened in the beginning, all the instruments, that is the choir, the strings, the pad, the pianos, everything, they just drop. And that dropping effect, it creates excitement, but it's also the withdrawal of that excitement of the chorus, and that's a really cool effect to have. One thing to notice here is I wanted to have this sort of counter melody, so I added a counter melody to the pads. And sort of a jazzy run over there. And after that we have the piano. Funny thing about this, in the beginning and the end of the song, I just have this small passage of notes here. Now, most of you would have caught on by now, but this passage of notes is actually the circle of fifths. And the circle of fifths is basically this awesome passage where you just build up fifths from whichever note you start from. And the reason why I added it is slightly uncommon. The thing is, the overarching polyrhythm of this entire piece is a 3/2 polyrhythm. And the thing with the perfect fifth is the intervallic ratio between the two notes of the perfect fifth is 3/2. And this sort of is an extension of the idea that pitch and rhythm are not two vastly different concepts, they are on the same plane rather. And when we always thought of the two concepts of rhythm and pitch as totally different, now we see that they are sort of embedded and they're sort of on the same plane. And I sort of played on that idea, so I just had that in the beginning and the end, just to end the piece and to begin it. The idea of this was to begin where we started. So I finished the piece. I finished composing everything, adding all these layers of sound, and now I am finally happy with the way it has turned out. Now, next it was just a matter of mixing everything, EQing, adding a bit of compression and a few effects, and making the music video. This is Polyrhythmic Plethora.